Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
Boing. We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish! What?
He ate 54 wieners.
Oh, listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show, where we talk about all the most important things going on in the world of live fire, even outside of live fire, as we've been talking about in the first hour, and you'll hear about here in just a second as we review the poll question stats. Talking a lot about Joey Chestnut getting banned out of the hot dog eating contest.
Hit me!
Tyler Bloom in the Facebooks. Do I get a shout out for tagging you in the post, Greg Rempe? Yes, of course. Ask and you shall receive. I just happened to catch that at the right time, so I remember to say. Diane Me through Facebook weighing in. Business Costco sells whole goats. How about that? Maybe I can have my own goat roast. Guy, the Cooking Sam, don't ever stop doing this, Greg. We need you. The show? Don't ever stop doing the show. I don't have any plans on stopping the show. As long as I get one download, I will do the show. Sponsors can dry up. Most of you can go away. But remember, I started doing this because I wanted to do it for me. I like it. So as long as I'm doing it, then as long as I'm doing it for the right reasons, yes. By the way, something really big happened to me at the day job. Here we go. I don't know how it happened. I'm a fleet, I don't know what they call it, major accounts manager, whatever I've been for the last 2.5 years, 3 years. Been very hard through the pandemic for me to actually do that job. We won't get into that. Somehow, and again, I'm not sure exactly how it happened. Your boy has just received promotion to Director of Sales. I must interview really well. Like, I know I'm pretty good at interviewing, but I got some sage veteran advice from my dad, and I went in against all odds, and I found out very late in this whole nomination process, like the whole job opening portion was closing. Somebody said, "Oh, you're not going to apply for the director of sales position?" I said, "Are you talking to me? I'm just the sales guy." "Well, just go ahead." "All right, why not?" So I quickly ran through it. Submitted it. I had to update a resume, which I hadn't done in 6 or 7 years. Do all that. Had to do a new round of lying on the resume. And then got the first interview with the HR lady and went in to the second round of interviews, then third round with the boss man. He's the guy that hired me. And lo and behold, I thought there. So the reason I'm saying I can't believe it is because the way it sits, well, not the way it sits now, but the way it sat before today, when the official announcements went out, it was, my boss. Then there were these 2 regional managers, and then there are a number of sales associates. You know how mob organization runs. So like my boss is the Don, and then there's 2. Well, there was no underboss, and then there were the capos. Those are your sales managers, and then you have your associates and made men underneath the sales managers doing the day-to-day, selling, covering territory, whatnot. And then there was me off to the side. I didn't report to any of the sales managers. I just had like a direct connect up to, the guy that hired me, who's the vice president of the truck group. He's the main man. But I was running like a side report to him. So this whole thing opens up. I jumped rungs. I skipped right over sales manager and went right to director of sales. So I went from, I don't know what's higher than a mate. I wasn't a capo per se, but I was capo in training maybe. And somehow I jumped, capo status went right to underboss. How about that? Yes. So now I'm in charge of a number of people. Look, let's bottom line it right now. Yesterday, in my position of major accounts manager, I was able to fire 0 people. Today, after the announcement, holding the vice president of the truck group aside, which is the guy higher than me, I can fire everybody. You're out, you're out, you're out. Just for a quick boilerplate of how things have changed in the last 24 hours. No firing everybody. That can happen. And now I get to prove that I can do directing of sales. There's a lot of reports I don't know how to do. Lots of things that I don't know how to do, but we're gonna see how this team works. Because the teamwork has to make my dream work. Otherwise, like I was telling everybody earlier, this month, everybody knows about this month's sales contest. First place, you win a Cadillac Eldorado. Second place, set of steak knives. Third place is you're fired. Somebody's gonna ask me. We're gonna have the little sales talk with somebody, and then somebody's gonna ask me, "Oh yeah, big shot. How much money did you make last year?" Oh, it's not there. All this time and it's not there anymore? Now that's a shame. Never you mind what I was gonna go for. So that's little big news for the day job right there. So. Little Peterbilt news for the biggest Peterbilt group in Ohio. There's one in southern Ohio. Can't get full control of the state, but we're in 79% of the state, maybe 80% of the state controlled by Ohio Peterbilt. And your new director of sales also happens to be your favorite podcast host across all platforms and mediums and genres and topics and all that other stuff. The YouTube poll question of the week is this. You are shocked that Joey Chestnut has been banned from this year's hot dog eating contest, and 58% of you are saying yes. It's starting to claw back now to 50-50. So we'll watch that through the rest of the second hour here. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday. What was supposed to be the show last week is now this week, episode 337, taking you back to May 23rd of 2017. This coming Friday, barbecue legend Jeff Staney is being featured. You might know Jeff from being a competition legend with a team named Slaughterhouse 5. Slaughterhouse 5 won so much, they forced the American Royal to change the rules, if you will. Or you might know Jeff from his legendary Kansas City barbecue restaurant, Joe's KC, which features the famous Z-Man Sando. So if you're not familiar with Jeff, this would be a great way to get introduction to him. He's a great barbecue entrepreneur, a barbecue Hall of Famer a number of years back as well. His name is Jeff Staney. So look for that on Friday. Don't forget you can subscribe to the show by visiting thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe. And don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or segment again that's been lost in the archives, you can email our pal John Solberg, Jon, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com. and he'll do his best to meet your expectation. Also, there was no Famous Dave's event this past weekend, but there was one on June 1st in Las Vegas, Nevada. Winning that, Uncle Jesse's Barbecue, and coming in reserve, All Up in My Grill Barbecue. Both GC and RGC have earned spots in the 2024 World Food Championship in the barbecue division in November in Indianapolis, Indiana, so we congratulate them. And the next event is going to be in a week's time from now. So we're off this coming weekend, but they'll be back at it here in a week. So if you have questions about past results or you want to see the remaining schedule, you visit worldfoodchampionships.com/allstars. That's worldfoodchampionships.com/allstars, and you can get all your information there. Pat LaFrida is ready to rock and roll here in the green room. We'll get to him here in just 1 second. Before we do that, we will talk to you about our pals over at Pits and Spits. You tired of settling for mediocre grilling experiences? Yes, it's time to step your game up.
Step your game
Bring the ultimate flavor and cooker to the backyard barbecues. Pits and Spits charcoal grills offering the highest quality live fire cooking experience you can get in the market today. Using either wood or charcoal, these solid fuel grills produce those classic flavors you're looking for when you have the time to fire up the grill and cook for family and friends. With a large adjustable fuel tray, you can raise and lower the fire to control and fine-tune the heat. Their take on the Santa Maria style grill. Check them out at pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central, and then use promo code Charcoal Central, all one word, Charcoal Central, for $150 off any charcoal grill that Pits and Spits is selling. By the way, not asked to be in the read. If you're looking for a really heavy-duty, kick-ass burger press, Pits and Spits is building probably the best one on the market today. They sent me one a couple months ago. I mean, is it difficult to make smash burgers? No, of course not. Does this make it a little easier? Is it a little cooler? Could you use it as a weapon? Somebody broke into your house and the chips are down? Yes, yes, and yes. pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central and use promo code Charcoal Central for $150 off the charcoal grill. And then take that $150 savings and buy a few of those burger press. Free money. All right, Pat LaFrida is lined up. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
This portion of the show being brought to you by our pals over at Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, especially if you're into upright barrel smokers. 3 different sizes to choose from, lots of accessories to complete the experience. You visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you, and you're going to be one happy camper. Leading off the second hour tonight is the man many of us look to in order to get the inside scoop of what's going on in the meat purveying business, whether you are a discerning home cook or a restaurant that is looking to serve some of the best steaks, chickens, and other proteins at your place of business. This is one of the premier places to turn to in order to fill that need. The man who is widely considered to be America's butcher, CEO of LaFrida Meat Purveyors, Pat LaFrida, joining the show once again. Pat, great to have you back here on the show after, believe it or not, a 5-year layoff. June 2019 was the last time you were on the show. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking all guests and anybody that's watching on YouTube, which is this. You are shocked that Joey Chestnut has been banned from the July 4th Nathan's Famous hot dog eating contest.
I don't even believe it. So, yeah, I am shocked. I have been his personal judge for the last 6 years, and I can't believe that he's a vegetarian.
You're the guy
I just think he's coming out on that day.
You're standing in front of him counting the dogs?
Oh, yes.
You're kidding.
Counting, nope. I have the that number counter, so you just keep flipping the page as he eats. So I turn over that my assistant has that, and I'm judging how many hot dogs in completion he has finished. So what a wild, messy place to be, but that is one heck of an event. I mean, the energy in there, and in Brooklyn with 20,000 people around. It really is exciting. It's a little tough. It's on the 4th of July, and getting through that area, it's a lot of traffic and such, but it's so worth it. You have to go at least once. But it's such a special event, especially during COVID and through COVID. I thought it just made things feel a lot more normal.
How do you get the job to be judge? Does Major League Eating reach out to you, or are you pals with Joey and he's like, Pat, be the guy that counts my hot dogs and buns, or what?
I met Joe there. I met Joey as a judge, but no, Nathan's asked me if I would guest judge, and I did it one year and I loved it. It was just a lot of fun. It was the only time my mom ever called me, and she's like, "You're on ESPN." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a hot dog eating contest, Mom." But it really is an exciting time there. But some wild things have happened while I was there. So right in front of me, you have the chief of police, you have, I believe the mayor was there that year also. Joey got rushed on the stage by 3 guys. And I'm shocked at how they got past all of us, all the police, and they got to Joey. And I got to give it to Joey. Like, he kept eating. So he had one of them in a headlock and gave them one shot and was still eating hot dogs and still won. It was amazing.
It's an unbelievable event. I try and watch it every year. I'm always ended up being outside, so I catch it on the news. But the one year where he ate 70... So were you there for like the 74 or 76 hot dogs and buns?
Yes.
That's
his norm.
That's got to be like the utopian day of eating. I mean, I couldn't imagine eating 70.
It looks very uncomfortable.
The other thing is this. We're way off topic here, and I apologize. People think hot dogs. They don't ever... Most of them don't also include the buns. It's not 74 hot dogs or 76 hot dogs. 74 or 76 hot dogs and buns, which is incredible.
But without the buns, they wouldn't be able to eat the hot dogs, because if you ever watch their technique, where they dip the bread in and the lemonade and such, whatever potions they have and liquids, they dip it in. But that acts as the lubricant to get everything else down. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. And to watch them after, it's there's only one result that could come of that.
Yeah.
And that it comes right back out. That's when you try to duck. But while they're eating, it's messy as a judge, and you're really pushed up against them. But Greg, I must say this: it was 3 years ago. One of the judges to my right had passed out, and there were only 30 seconds left for Joey Chestnut. I had to leave with 30 seconds left in that competition. The judge to my right passed out, and with all the people there, no one helped him.
Oh no!
So here I am. I was a medic in the military, so I grabbed him. I fireman carried him out of there. I just thought he was one of their staff. He wound up being a billionaire from Guadalajara who took a private flight in just to be a judge, and he partied hard the night before. He was an older guy, and so I wasn't there for the final count, but he won by like 30 or 40 hot dogs.
And you make another billionaire friend on top of that, helping him out, right? I mean, that's not too bad.
No, and he's in the restaurant business, which was great. But no, he's a very good guy.
So as I had mentioned, 2019 was the last time you were on, Pat. So plenty has transpired in and around the live fire industry over the past 5 years, not the least of which the pandemic, which you briefly referenced. How are you able to successfully navigate that in your specific operation?
It was difficult. On March 16th of 2020, that's when restaurants were closed in New York City. So we were 85% completed on a new facility in which we had invested everything in. It was a $20 million facility. It's 200 yards from here. So after working all night, I had to play contractor during the day, and getting that last 15% done was very difficult. But on the same day, we were given a presidential mandate to stay open. And so by federal law, if I would have closed, I would have faced federal prison time. When I had asked about my staff, they said, no, not just you. I'm like, okay. My staff who could have stayed home, and I have 262 folks, they didn't. They all came to work, and throughout COVID, we had 6 positives. I thought that was fascinating. It was very unlike what the media was telling us was happening in meat facilities. And I spent the first few months at work convincing customers, chefs who kind of like threw the towel in, and they were on the couch every day watching the governor of New York like give the update, the briefing. And I just thought, you have to get out. You have to get out there. You have to do trunk pickups, do some sort of food delivery. And they asked, what does Trump have to do with it? I'm like, no, not the president, the trunk of the car. Like, someone pulls the car up, pop the trunk. There's no human contact. It was genius.
Yeah.
And just, we did things like that. And we needed to feel, we say, a lot of companies say that they're one big family, but this really is a big family.
Yeah.
And because everyone was coming to work, we wanted to give something back, and we wanted to stop the panic, the chaos. We thought the COVID's not going to kill us, but panic may. And when people were waiting online for 5 hours in stores to find out at the grocery store that there was no food after 5 hours, we thought that was scary. So we have 50 trucks, and we sent 25 of them out to different areas of the tri-state and gave them to restaurants to hold on to because they were refrigerated. And then we would go and refill them the next day with meat, to as long as the restaurant sold it on a wholesale level, and there was no one egregious, and there wasn't one case of that. We were able to, in our way, alleviate a little bit of the stress and chaos of it. So believe it or not, that helped us, and it kept us going. So retail was huge for us during COVID. So we went from 95% restaurant sales to 95% retail sales. And, outside of the 5 boroughs, COVID didn't exist that much, right? You could go into restaurants, you could eat, as soon as you crossed back over into the 5 boroughs, you had to be closed. So, we still had business outside of that, but it definitely, I have PTSD from that time period. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it was hard. Imagine being at work and then someone breaks into your home and you're watching it on your Ring camera, and you can't. It's not like you even have an ability to leave.
Yeah.
Just a lot of crazy stories like that. But we made it through. We opened the new facility in November of 2020, and it's in operation as we speak right now. So we start in both places at 6 p.m. and I go back and forth between both.
When things started to normalize, you said you went from 95 being restaurant to 5% consumer. It flip-flops during the pandemic. So when things start to normalize again, where do the percentages shake out? Do you go right back to more or less being more restaurant focused, or does the consumer still stick in there a little bit harder than you might have thought?
The consumer stayed in. So we were a lot of direct-to-consumer for quite a while. When restaurants first reopened, there was, not everyone believed that it was safe, and some didn't want to believe that it was safe again. So, but what we did realize is that we had the same amount of people to feed, just through a different platform. So, as things eased up, you asked when things normalized. For us, it normalized at the end of 21. But then, as we know, that there was still some scare in 22. But we saw restaurants started to come back fully in 2022. So, and I would say that we're back to 90-10. So 90% restaurant, 10% retail. And I think that doubled the amount of retail that we used to do. And that had to do with our performance in supplying retail during the pandemic. So we didn't have any shortages. There were no meat shortages in this country. Being able to get meat or food on the shelf at a grocery level, that's a different story.
Yep.
But the meat supply was there. Just getting the staff to get it out for retail sales was different and challenging. And I think that our politicians at first all acted on, in everyone's best interest and thought, how can we get past this? And there were even some reductions in requirements for retail labeling and such. Because it does take a lot more time to pack for retail with nutrition statements and such. But it kept us busy. It did keep us busy. So you have to find a way. Some customers called me and said, Pat, what are you going to do with all the product that you have in inventory? I'm sure it's all going bad. I'm like, we're just as busy as we were the day before. Just, now it's going to Amazon or ShopRite, which is Wakefern, or our own direct-to-consumer. Because I remember I first told my team, do not put any more meat in the dry age room. That ends today. And it was only a couple days later we needed to fill it again. So, that to me was a good indicator that, okay, as a meat purveyor to restaurants, we do have a future. Like, we're not done. And we would never have accepted that anyway, but that was a big indicator that, okay, these same folks they want meat, and they don't just want meat, they want prime, dry aged, or high choice dry aged strip steaks and ribeyes, and all the stuff that we sold before. So in that capacity, it was the same amount of demand.
One of the main topics we were talking about in 2019 was, let's call it the reinvigoration of plant-based meats. Where do you see that whole segment in the market right now?
Oh, plant-based crashed.
Yeah.
So I was one of the first to distribute Impossible, and I thought it was a great idea. I mean, it's an alternative protein. I'm not against. I'm always going to be for common sense. And if you can make protein out of plant roots, that great. But once it showed up in franchises that are very old and tired, and restaurants no longer want that product. They don't want to use the same thing. I don't want the tired franchise food brands that I'm speaking of. And when some of those brands were caught cooking that on a surface with regular burgers, that was another big problem. But restaurants that I sell to, they no longer wanted that product. So our demand for that, we've seen we stopped carrying it. We have no demand for that at all. I'll tell you what the future is, though. It's lab-based. So that the idea that you wouldn't have to kill an animal to eat protein, I think it's going to be pivotal for vegetarians, especially, because that's one of the main reasons that vegetarians don't eat meat. And you have a decent population of that. I don't think it affects the meat industry at all. It'll just have more people eating meat, though. It is real meat, as opposed to something that's a vegetable that is posing as meat. Yep. It tastes terrible. In this case, and I've tasted so far the poultry, and the poultry tastes exactly like it should. So it's very expensive. As time goes on, $40 a pound for chickens are going to be, come down to, good levels. But until then, it'll be pretty inapproachable for most. But it's going to be an option. That's where the future is, because from the way we see it, it's in the flavor. So it's in the final product. What is that texture? What is that flavor? Everyone wants to feel good about what they're eating. So as a purveyor, that's all we do is seek out the best meat to make that happen. And in this case, it's going to be the best cultured meat, I guess is the best way to say it. There are certain buzzwords that I try to stay away from. It's like lab meat, but I want to have an open mind to that, because I think there's something to that. As our population grows and supply of protein diminishes, we need to have some other way to produce protein, because as a meat purveyor, I never want to hear that meat's so expensive that some Americans can't afford it. It's a sad day, in any capacity.
I did a segment that aired in the podcast feed last week with the company's called Chunk Foods, based out of Israel. And the guy found the company through doing something completely different. He was in Brooklyn during the pandemic, started I don't know if it was fermenting or growing or whatever, but knew somebody, got an investor, and all of a sudden it's blossomed up. And so it's not plant-based by the definitions that we were just talking about, and protein available. So they seem to be getting traction with restaurants. I don't know where his purveyor traction, like a La Frida meat, would be. If a restaurant calls you and says, hey, we've fallen in love with X or Y, is this something that you can get? Is that when you would start to entertain that? Or does it have to be a lion's share of your customers all asking for that for you to start looking outside of the traditional meats?
No, it would take one customer to ask us, and that's our job. Our job is to seek the product that they're looking for. What many don't understand about what a meat purveyor does, or any purveyor, when it comes to restaurants, is that restaurants don't ever want to hear we're out of it. If it's on the menu, the idea of 86ing something, it's a four-letter word, man.
Yeah.
You cannot say that. And so having something in stock all the time, so you have to have it in stock, but fresh so that it's not short-dated. But the product that you were talking about, is it mushroom-based?
I don't know if it's. I don't know, to be honest. So I don't want to speak out of school here, but so they had sent me. They sent me a sample. So texture, look, like fit, finish kind of stuff. It did a lot of stuff that none of the plant-based steaks that I had before ever did. I will say, when I ate it, there was a resounding mushroom feel for me as far as taste, profiles that it was giving me. It wasn't super tender like a La Frida prime beef would be. And so for me, it was like this big mind fuck. I want it to be steak. It's not. It wasn't billing itself, but it was like it. So it was almost so good, I still wanted it to be like that. So in my mind, I'm letting myself down, but I don't think it was through any fault of the product, if that makes sense.
And that was a steak?
Yes.
Oh, so yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that process, but we do work with a mushroom company that we use the mycelium. How do you pronounce that? Mycelium. It's the stem of mushrooms, and at a certain point, I asked why. So we had a 50-50 burger probably in 2016, which was 50% vegetables, which I did with Chef Franklin Becker. He roasted them; they were great, and I mixed them with our original blend ground beef to make a burger. And in that situation, it was, if you wanted to eat less meat, but you wanted that whole burger, that was a perfect solution. There was nothing fake about it. We weren't hiding or masking anything. It's 50-50. And it was now we make a 50-50 burger with the mushroom stem. I wish it tasted a little bit more like mushroom, but if you're looking to cut half of the meat out of your diet, here's another great way. And there's nothing fake about it. There's nothing genetically modified to get there. This is purely our beef and mushroom stem. The 50-50 burger had more mushroom flavor because it had more of the tops of the mushrooms than the stem. But there are health benefits to the stems, and it is another great way. I think it's a lot better than plant, a meat alternative. So, I shouldn't say that. This is a meat alternative. So the better than plant-based. Plant-based is something developed, and they even made it bleed. Why would you want to make it bleed if you're trying to get away from meat to begin with? That never made sense to me. It didn't help the flavor out at all either. So I think that an alternative to that is eating some vegetable with beef, and that's great. We love that.
Pat LaFrida joining us here on the show. The website is lafrida.com, and you can find Pat on Instagram at Pat LaFrida. Pat, appreciate the catch up here, and I know we kind of deviated on the Joey Chestnut stuff and burned some time, so let's do it again sooner than later.
Look forward to it, Greg. Thank you.
You got it. Pat LaFrida right there. Killing it as always. Always happy to have him on. And wow, all these years, I've watched Joey Chestnut be competitive hot dog eating in Brooklyn, and right there in front of him is Pat LaFrida counting his hot dogs. Who knew? Maybe I would have known if I would have paid a little bit more attention. Right. Mark Ridvalsky is ready to go. Before we get to him, we're talking about Franklin Barbecue Pit, the backyard version of the famed pit built by Aaron Franklin for his renowned barbecue restaurant in Austin, Texas. Built for those barbecue purists who want to take their craft to the next level. What you have with the Franklin Pit is a deeply thought out and refined version of the old propane tank-style cookers that Aaron built for his Franklin Barbecue restaurant. Stylistically, it reflects the kind of bare-bones industrial handmade aesthetic that he loves, as in the patina and the way the build allows you to see the welds and the craftsmanship. The schematics of a Texas off-style barbecue pit, relatively simple, even when the things going on inside the cooking chamber are complicated dynamics of physics and chemistry. Very few moving parts here. Numerous and massive differences divide the Franklin Pit from your average barbecue smoker at the big box store. For instance, the Franklin Pit is primarily made with 5/16 and quarter-inch thick steel, American made. That's strong. Anything that sees heat engineered to be incredibly solid should last a century or more if cared for properly. The thickness of the steel guarantees professional heat grade retention, a critical component in making great barbecue. Franklin Pits can be found at fine barbecue specialty stores in select regions of the country. If you, the listener, are an owner of such a store and wish to become a certified Franklin dealer, please visit franklinbbqpits.com and fill out a dealer form. If you, the listener of this show, would love to own a Franklin Pit, but you live too far away from a certified dealer, you can also visit franklinbbqpits.com and purchase Franklin Pit right on the website. Franklin Pits will ship a Franklin Pit to your driveway. It's that easy. So if you're a dealer, you want to become a certified Franklin dealer, visit the website. And if you just want to buy outright because you live too far away from a certified dealer, go to the same website and purchase. Either way you want to do it. Building the DTC end and building a dealer network all at the same time. We are back to talk a little Ritz Works right after this. Stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Pat LaFrida for joining us. Last segment, this portion of the show being brought to you by JRE Tobacco, makers of Aladino line of premium hand-rolled cigars. My fave, the Corojo Reserva, but they also make the Sumatra, the Aladino Classic, Fuma Noche, and the 100% Corojo, or the 100% Cameroon cigar that is not released yet, but maybe in another month or so. JREtobacco.com is the place to go to find a dealer near you, or tell your retailer to carry JRE Tobacco. Helping me close the show tonight is a guy bringing a solar-powered option to the offset cooker market. Confused? Of course you are, but we'll unconfuse you during the segment. So let's welcome the CEO and Director of Business Development of Ritz Works, first-time guest Mark Ridvalsky, joining me here on the show. Mark, appreciate you jumping in here out of the bullpen tonight. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody before we start talking about the products here, which is this. You are shocked that Joey Chestnut has been banned from the July 4th Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Absolutely shocked that they would tell Jordan not to play in the finals this year. It's a very, very interesting move. I don't know. You take some players out of the game and you kind of lose the game. And I feel like that's what's happening with Joey Chestnut. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if I'll be watching. Maybe we'll see what happens.
63% of the YouTube voting public voting in line with you and me, shocked. The follow-up question to that is, are you surprised that Joey Chestnut is aligned with Impossible Foods?
No, not at all. It's probably just a good fit, and I'm sure they tossed him a good amount of money to come over and make the name recognition and kind of cause a little bit of a stir with the news. So I'm sure it was worth his while monetarily to do it.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Personal background and professional background on a Mark Rudbalski.
Yeah, absolutely. So my professional background is in finance. I was a financial advisor for a long time. And honestly, my day job, I still work with financial advisory firms doing, business development, things like that. But personally, my passion is alternative forms of energy out there. Really something I picked up in college just to kind of keep me focused and kind of be a distraction from all the finance and economic stuff that you do to kind of become a financial advisor. And I've just always really had a pretty big passion for energy. And, you grow up, you get married, have kids, stuff like that, and your passions kind of take a little backseat for a while. But kind of as I became more successful, just took advantage of, a little bit more income, a little bit more time, believe it or not, even with kids, and decided to kind of chase my passion here and work with alternative forms of energy. So I started Ritzworks off of that, and here we are. We started out making solar powered pergola kits, which were pretty popular back in 2019. During actually kind of right before the pandemic started, we started. So it seems like not the best timing, but with
for that is perfect,
more
right?
Time. Yeah, right. You're spending more time at home. People were really, really into watching TV and homeowners, HGTV, stuff like that. So definitely a big opportunity for us. And we're a super small company. So we were really happy with the business, and then came out of the pandemic and we're like, okay, what are we going to do next? So we want to take that kind of mindset of bringing solar power to places people don't expect it. And obviously you think of pergolas, you're like, oh, wow, like, what do you mean? What's solar power? How does that work? And honestly, think of an outdoor living room. Like, you have your TV, you have your fan, you have your outlets, and imagine just the pain in the butt it would be to run electrical from your house to your pergola. And we just decided, hey, we're going to provide solar power. We're going to power that stuff up. And that brings us to now this year. We definitely kind of dipping our toe into the barbecue space, and we're going to see what we can do to kind of change the way people think about grilling in general. And that's why we're here.
So are you a live fire fan, or you just see a business opportunity?
No, super, super live fire fan. I live in Texas, obviously the cow behind me, but when you
does that mean you live in
Texas? Yeah, well, I guess, it's a Longhorn, but when you move to Texas and you move to suburbs, you kind of got to pick up a few things, and grilling was my go-to. I have a nice offset. I've got a gas grill. I had another small little green egg. So, love it. Just love grilling. And I knew I wanted to do something in this space, and I knew there were some better opportunities, and it just took time, to kind of be inspired. And personally, I was inspired with the two products we sell. Just first things first, with the Power Moose. That's what we call our solar power box that incorporates solar energy into the pellet smokers you would see out there, like your Traeger or your Pit Boss, and kind of just removing the wires from something like that. But personal story with the offset moose, the product you mentioned when we first started, that just came from me, for lack of a better term, having a few adult beverages last July 4th and putting on a brisket, thinking I had it under control in my offset, and, kind of passing out for a few hours and losing my fire and waking up and to a ruined 15-pound brisket. So I knew there had to be some type of solution there to kind of make things smoother. And that's where the offset moose was inspired. Just basically bringing the convenience and the kind of predictability of an offset, from a pellet grill to an offset. That this was intrigued me. So I did a lot of research on how pellet grills worked, and obviously I know solar energy like the back of my hand, so I put them both together, and that's how we got the offset moose.
So this is through solar panels. How are you, or do you make a Are you making them here? Do you have a business relationship with a manufacturer, either in the States or somewhere out of the country, that you're able to get these? How does that work?
Excellent question. So I would say a majority, maybe like 85, 90% of solar panels are from China. So we have a supplier that sends them over just like everybody else. And that's how we give our panels. Our panels are an integral part, but believe it or not, pretty easy to get and use and assemble.
So I've just I've just introduced everybody to a relationship that I've had over the last 3 or 4 years with a guy who owns a Chinese manufacturing plant for gas grills. More or less, they're the first or second biggest gas grill manufacturer in the globe. One of the things that I hear about with Chinese manufacturing, maybe a stereotype, is you have to be on their ass, because the minute they think they can skirt or cut a corner and maybe put a little extra in their pocket, they're going to do it. And if you're not there specifically on ground to monitor that fairly regularly, you might get caught holding the bag a little bit. Have you had any experience with that? And have you had to switch manufacturers through your time doing this?
That's an excellent question that no one's really asked me before. That's awesome. But no, with us being such a small company and me being, jack of all trades here, I see every product, every piece that comes into our workshop here. And yeah, from time to time, you'll get something that's broken or just not in good shape, and you'll have to swap it out. But like I said, there's so many different manufacturers out there. And with our panels, we're not talking massive panels for these consumer goods that we offer. They're not big by any means, and our orders aren't huge bulks or anything like that. Like I said, we're a smaller startup. So if anything were to happen to be less than ideal quality wise, we can replace it and swap it pretty quick. And we're pretty hands on when we're assembling things, so we can see it. It's not like it's going straight to a consumer or anything like that. Everything's quality checked. So not that big of a deal for us, but definitely in the future, we do get pretty big, could become an issue. But hopefully, as alternative energy and like solar and things like that are more encouraged, quote unquote, by the powers that be, there will be more American manufacturers we can be closer with.
So let's talk about the grill stuff specifically. I have a Green Mountain Grill, a Trek or the Ledge, whatever it is. It's not the big one, but the middle one. So if I want to use Power Moose, is this something that's going to install like onto the grill? Is it just like a power bank that I can roll up next to the grill and I'm going to be plugging into that versus tethering to the house? How does that work?
Love the question. So we basically have our mag-lock system, and I say mag-lock because it's not like trademarked or anything like that, but basically you stick the power box on the pellet, the pellet hopper, and the panel is on top of the box. So it's all one unit with that particular product. So you just stick it on in your spot. Most pellet grills, you'll have like a handle on the side of your hopper. You just obviously unscrew that off and then just stick it on right there, and then basically plug and play. You plug your cord from your pellet grill into the Power Moose just like anything else, and you're good to go. And then you're done. You have nothing to worry about. As long as you're not cooking briskets every day, you're in good shape. But if you are someone that is doing longer cooks every day, you may run into a little bit of an issue. Or if it's like super duper cloudy and you're going like through a cloudy week, it depends on where you're at. You may be in some trouble. But for the average consumer that's doing like steaks or I don't know, like a pork butt once or twice a week, you're in good shape. You have nothing to worry about ever.
Do I want to leave it uncovered so it's catching rays, if you will, and keeping the charge?
Absolutely. You want to keep it uncovered. And that's actually a really, really great question. It depends on the environment you're at. Here in Texas, a lot of people just have their grills uncovered. And I would assume most of our listeners probably have a setup that's not, let's just say, terribly intensive when it comes to caring for it. It's probably the best phrase.
I cover all my grills.
Don't mind if
I talk shit about everybody that does not cover a grill, especially if you're buying something $1,000 or more. Like, why wouldn't you put something over to keep the elements off of it? But maybe that's just me. It appears to be just me being in the minority. But I would have to either cut a hole in the cover to expose the solar panels, or just leave the cover off of it, I guess.
Yeah, good question. Honestly, with the magnets, they're pretty strong, and I would imagine you could basically still connect through the side of the cover. Obviously, your cover is not going to be able to handle the extra length, but I would imagine, and like I said, that's a great question. I would love to like kind of test it out, but I'm more than confident the magnets will be able to still stick once you do cover your pellet grill, and you're good to go. Just let it go.
So full charge, and I'm in the sun doing, an all-day cook, whatever. How much time am I getting on it? Or as long as there's sun, there's going to be power?
As long as there's sun, you're going to have power. Now, say you're doing an overnight cook, that's pretty long. Let's like, for example, we love brisket, so we're going to call it a brisket. You're overnight, let's call it not even the summer. The summer baby is probably like 8 hours or so in the middle of summer. So we'll say it's like spring or fall. So you're talking like maybe 12 hours of nightfall and no real light. You're going to make it that 12 hours and more with the battery size we have. So that's what I mentioned before. If it was a cloudy week and you were doing briskets like 3 nights in a row, which would be pretty absurd, maybe you're cooking for somebody or something like that, you might be in some trouble. But someone who's a professional like that or kind of taking that type of dive, they're not cooking on a pellet grill, I wouldn't imagine.
What are we looking at cost-wise?
Good question. The Power Moose is retailing right now for $359.99. The Offset Moose is at $309.96. Both of them, like I said, we're a startup and we're dipping our toe in this arena right now. So we're talking a limited production run of, we started the production run with 100 units each. We launched probably like 4 weeks ago. So we have we have a pretty, I'd say 60-ish of both left. So we have a little bit of a run left just to kind of test the market, fill it out, and then see where we go from there. But response has been good, and we do think it's priced right for the type of customer that's looking for something like this and looking to take an opportunity to do something different, because this is really, I don't think there's anything else like this on the market.
So it's $360 for the Power Moose and $310 more or less for the
just
offset
about for
moose.
the Offset Moose.
Yeah, and that's going to be a fan blowing into the firebox and then keeping temperature.
Yeah, good question. Basically, yeah. So think of it in the easiest way to kind of explain it to someone that's like, oh, what do you mean? So with an offset smoker, obviously, just like anything else, airflow is key. But basically, we took how do I want to phrase this as correct as we can? But basically, we took the innards of a pellet grill and put it into a unit that basically turns your offset into as close to a pellet grill as you can get without letting it just cook by itself. And that's the easiest way to explain it. But it basically just has consistent airflow. You do have a heating rod, which you're not going to see from a lot of our competitors. A lot of our competitors are just a fan. So you have the heating rod, you have the fan blowing consistent air to keep temperature. And then obviously you don't have to worry about plugging it in or finding, batteries somewhere. It's just good to go.
How are you promoting this? Aside from being on the biggest barbecue show ever, I mean, there's got to be other avenues you want to try and make this a success through.
Yeah, so obviously we start here, right, with you, Greg. But we do a lot of social media marketing. We do targeted ads. It's kind of I have a little bit of a background there just from my expertise back in the day. But we're definitely obviously direct to consumer. So our website is the best place to get this type of stuff. And obviously inquiry, please reach out, ask questions. We're always here to explain things, but our ad game on social media is top notch, second to none.
And available for sale. So if I want to go tonight, purchase one, there's some inventory left for listeners to snag them up.
Absolutely.
What else are we working on? We won't tell anybody else, I promise.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with barbecue, and we're going to kind of test the market there. Between us, and I'm sure no one else, but we are going to venture into hey, these are attachments, these are accessories. But if we're doing the numbers we want to do, maybe we do think about doing our own pellet grill that has this incorporated, or maybe changing the offset game and offering an offset smoker that just comes with solar panels. And right now that seems like just a crazy thing to think about. Totally. But the more we kind of rev this up and get in our space, who knows, there's a lot of things happening in the world and a lot of changes where hypothetically you never know when a state might ban, cooking with fire or using propane. And this is an easy alternative to be like, well, hey, we're doing it. And this is kind of offsetting the carbon So that's something we might have in our pocket down the road.
Let's assume this is going to go gangbusters. Traeger calls Mark, says, hey, this is Jeremy Andrews. We want to buy it. You sell for a price, or is this something you want to build out for a while?
Good question. This is something we want to partner with somebody on for sure. The company's mission is to put solar in places people don't expect. And we really want to spread the message that alternative energy is here and it's accessible. And it's like, obviously not the end all be all, because we're in Texas. We still believe in oil no matter what, but it's just an opportunity for people to take advantage of free, clean energy. Right. So the faster we can do that, the better. So yeah, if Traeger wants to knock on our door and make an offer and they stick with our values, why not? But that's not going to be the end of the company or the vision by any means.
So you really do have passion instead of, writing a fuck you money check just to take and go off into the sunset. You really want to be a person that lends a greener thumb, if you will, to the whole world.
Absolutely, 100%. Like we're not trying to. Absolutely. This isn't the end of it.
I'm the opposite, by the way. I want the fuck you money, and I just want to go into the sunset. But that's the difference between you and me.
I get it.
All right, so ritzwerks.com is the website. RITZWERKS. Any significance on the spelling there?
Yeah, good question. So just inspired by a lot of engineering things, and Lockheed Martin was a big thing growing up, and obviously a big thing here in Texas, and their kind of special unit was called Skunk Works, and I always thought that was an awesome name. And obviously when I wanted to start my company, I wanted to call it Ritzwerks for like shortening my last name and adding works to the end. And obviously when you go to get a domain, sometimes the domain isn't exactly there. So we dropped the O, added the E, and now we're pretty unique. We're the only ones out there, I think, that have the works, but it sounds good. It's awesome. We like it.
Ritzwerks.com is the place to go. They're in stock, so grab them up, give them a try, and let Mark know what you think about them. Mark, really appreciate the time and the insight here this evening. Continued success.
Absolutely, Greg. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Mark Ritvalsky right there, the CEO and Director of Business for Ritzwerks. And if you're looking to untether from the house, plugging in your pellet cookers, or if you want a new solar-powered fan for the offset, you can do that too. I must have activated Google somehow saying something. I don't know what the hell I said. You can get the Power Moose, or you can get the Offset Moose. Let's try it out. I think I'm a buyer. Ritzwerks.com, RITZWERKS. Listen up, gang. Our friends at Big Papa Smokers have something special just for you, listeners of the show, whether you're seasoned barbecue pro or a grilling newbie. Big Papa Smokers is your one-stop shop for all things barbecue, from their championship rubs, mouth-watering sauces, essential accessories. They've got what you need to take your food to the next level, both on the competition circuit or in the backyard. Here's the cherry on top. Big Papa Smokers offering listeners of the Barbecue Central show an exclusive deal. Use the code REMPE at checkout. That's REMPE. Get $10 off your next $50 purchase of rub, sauces, or accessories. Imagine the possibilities of evaluating your ribs with Big Papa's Sweet Money, Big Papa's Desert Gold on your chicken, or better yet, pick up Double Secret and put it on your steak. Head over to BigPapaSmokers.com and start shopping today and start saving today. And don't forget to use promo code REMPE, REMPE, at checkout to claim your $10 off your next order of $50 or more. Also, don't forget to check out Big Papa's full line of recipes at cookingwithbigpapa.com. And, of course, follow him on social media for amazing recipes. Let's wrap the show. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. What is going on? All right. Stop. There we go. Google AI was talking. I couldn't figure out where the hell the voice was coming from. We thank Mark Radvalsky for joining us last segment, CEO, Director of Business Development over at ritzwork.com, talking about the Power Moose and the Offset Moose. So once again, if you're thinking about giving solar a try for your pellet cookers or your offset, why not? Easy to do. Buy a solar generator battery and plug the pellet grill into it. We do it at every comp. Haven't run the gas generator in over a year. Diane Me, keeping it green. Absolutely. All right, let's wrap it up all the way back in the first hour. We almost had Meathead. We didn't almost have him. We had no Meathead. You got to get updated on Joey Chestnut. And then after the failed Meathead segment, we had Robert Moss from robertfmoss.com, Southern Living's barbecue editor. He has a new 20 restaurant recommendation in Charleston, South Carolina. If you're going to be vacationing down there in Southern Living magazine, check that out. We also talked about the traditional Juneteenth dishes, barbecue, if you can believe it. Also, whole goats. So I put it out for one last time over the next week. If you're having a goat roast for Juneteenth, call me and you're in the greater metro Cleveland area. I will cover it. And then in the second hour, Pat LaFrida made his return to the show. We talked about Joey Chestnut and how he has been his personal hot dog and bun counting judge for the last 6 or 7 years. I had no idea. We also talked about LaFrida meats running through the pandemic and coming out the other side successfully. And we ended on some non-beef alternative options and what that market might look like. And then closing out with Mark Radvalsky from Ritzworks. Big show planned for you next week. If you can believe it, we're already into the third week of June. 2024 rapidly coming to a close. So how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. And until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
This is Dino Dan from Cypress, California, and you're watching the Barbecue Central Show.